Having looked at the classical utilitarian approach to just distribution and then the rights-based or libertarian approach to distribution, what we're going to move now to is a different approach from Rawls. So Rawls was considered one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, particularly in the area of philosophy, and he applied a contractarian approach to this distribution problem and the rules of society. So what he's worried about here is what kind of rules would people freely agree to if they could make the rules in their own society. So this is a contractarian approach, and to do it, what he did was he created his own thought experiment. So the thought experiment requires us to have people come together in what he called the original position. So in this original position, everyone's free and equal, okay? So there's no hierarchy in society. You can imagine a place without status, etc., where everyone is truly equal. People are free to negotiate in their own best interests, so they're not bound to do what anyone else says. And they operate behind, and this is really important, the veil of ignorance. So what does that mean? That means that the people who are negotiating don't know where they're going to end up. Okay, they don't know what position in society they're going to hold. They don't know if they're going to be poor or rich, or if they're going to be from a different race or a different gender. Okay, so all this is unknown when they do the negotiation. So what Rawls is setting up is something that that I do with my kids, and you probably have it done to you. You know, you've got a biscuit to break up between two kids, a big biscuit, two kids. What do? You let one halve it and the other one choose, right? So that the person doing the cutting then is going to make it as even as possible, right? So you set up those rules such that we get this hopefully fair outcome as a result of it. So in this kind of situation where we're negotiating for the rules of society, Rawls was of a belief that people are going to act and reason conservatively. So what does that mean? If they act conservatively, they're going to look at what's the worst position I could end up in, right? And then they're going to pick a system of rules that makes the worst position the best it possibly could be, because that's where they might end up. Okay, so the whole idea here behind it is that if people did have to negotiate and contract without knowing where they'd end up in society, we'd end up with a set of rules that did the best for the worst in our society. This kind of logic led to two key principles of justice. The first one is that people should be as free as possible. So he actually held a lot in common, if you think about it, with the libertarians. So people should be able to do and make their own choices as long as others have that same liberty, have as much liberty as them. So there should be liberty and this equality of liberty. The second thing that he said is we can have inequalities. So our system allows inequalities under two conditions, right? That those positions that allow inequalities are open to all, right? So that means really a lack of bias. So you've really got to think about hereditary transfers of wealth, etc., under this system, because they're not, we wonder whether they are freely open to all. Well, not so much the transfer of wealth, that is, but if there are positions of power, like in a monarchy, right, that's not open to all. So that would breach Rawls's theory of justice. We also have a second condition, that any inequalities, so any inequality in the system provides the greatest benefit for the least advantaged members of society, okay? So the worst off get the best possible outcome. And he said, if you have these two conditions, then inequalities are okay in a just distribution system. When he was talking about liberty, he was talking about these specific freedoms that people have, and I think that's fairly intuitive, so we won't spend a lot of time on that. The one that can be a little bit difficult to grab a handle of is the difference principle, this making the least best off the best off they can be. That's really bad words, but you get the idea. So the idea here is when we look at options, if we have a society that has option 1, option 2, and option 3, what we're looking for is the option that provides the highest low number, right? So the worst person off in option 1 is group D. The worst group off in option 2, again, is group D. And the third option, the worst group off, is group D. Okay. So, which one do we choose? We choose the option that provides the maximum for group D. So under Rawls's theory, the most just system we can come up with here is option 2. Notice I haven't added anything up to look at the maximum possible outcome. And notice also I haven't looked for an equality of spread, etc. I'm looking at the worst possible outcome, and I'm choosing the one that maximizes the worst possible outcome. Now, this is where we invoke the veil of ignorance. Why would you choose that? Because you could think, well, I could end up in group D, right? So I'm going to choose the one that maximizes group D. There are potential criticisms, right? Some people are actually risk takers, and they might choose the one that has the highest possible gain. So not everyone may bargain the way Rawls actually thinks about. Some people might also bargain based more on equality, and so they might choose that one. But he was of the view that they're going to choose option 2, which is sometimes called the difference principle, or maxi-min. So you're maximizing the minimum in terms of the outcome. As with most things in life, there's criticisms of Rawls' theory. One of them is that really the original position is just unrealistic and abstract. So we only make judgments about what we would like and not like based upon our position in society, like class and wealth. So who we are determines what we would prefer, and Rawls's approach ignores this reality in terms of his thought experiment. The second key criticism that we've talked about already is the fact that some people might not choose conservatively. Right? So we might not get this decision. If we could set up the original position, we're not sure that we'd end up with things the way that Rawls actually thought they would play out. And third, even if we did apply these principles, I think if we go back to Nozick's Wilt Chamberlain example, or the idea that people can then bargain even from that original position, we might get variations away from that original position that Rawls sets us out in. So really, number 3 is saying, is this really sustainable over the long term? And so therefore, how do we judge a society? We might have started off that way, but we don't end up that way because of the way that wealth then gets redistributed through free transactions between people. That's given you a bit of an overview around how we can distribute benefits and burdens in society and some different ways of thinking about those problems. That stuff can be applied both at a society level, but also, say, within a firm or a family or a classroom. So it gives us another tool in our armory when we're thinking about those ethical problems facing us in business. Hopefully, you'll be able to have a go at some of the problems to see some of this stuff in action.